I would like to welcome everybody and say thank you for joining another installment of Engage with Team Daniels-Haltom, the Great Lakes edition. My name is Aaron Katz, and I'll be the host for this evening. Before we throw it over to Nick and Jamal, I'll just say to the group that depending on given ages and whatnot, I can say pretty confidently that at this point in your career, this election will be the single most important election you will vote in to date. Now, it is imperative that when your ballot shows up and you see names on it, that you have taken the due diligence, done your due diligence, taken the responsibility to learn everything you can about the people who are asking for your support, who will ultimately be given your trust to guide and steer the union going forward. So with that, it's important to get to know not just Nick and Jamal as candidates and leaders, but who they are as people. So let's start there, and I'll throw it to Nick and Jamal to introduce themselves. Nick and Jamal, the floor is yours.
Aaron, appreciate it. Thanks to our entire team who works day in and day out to keep this machine moving. And thank you, Great Lakes, for being here, for showing up. And we'd look forward to you carrying this message back to everybody that will be, as Aaron said, casting a ballot. If you haven't had a chance, and I haven't had a chance to meet you or you meet me, I am Nick Daniels. I'm the Southwest Regional Vice President. I started my career in or traffic career in the United States Marine Corps from 98 to 2003. I was going to stay in the Marine Corps. I had no plans on being in the FAA, but life had other plans. I was injured in the Marine Corps and ended up getting out after having several discs blow out in my back and in my neck. So with that, I was hired in the FAA in 2003, originally assigned to Addison Tower in in Dallas, Texas, actually. And I asked to be put anywhere but Texas because I was originally from there. But I guess it doesn't matter if you want to go back to your home or not go to your home. They're going to put you in the opposite place anyways, but something we'll be talking about and working on overall with it. So spent 2 years at Addison Tower, went over to Fort Worth Center. Got there in 2005, and the White Book was quickly upon us. I was one of the most junior people in my area. I think I was actually the most junior person at the time in seniority and in age. And I had a group of very senior controllers who rallied behind me and said, this is your career. This is your future. This is your union. It's time to stand up and know how to get in the fight. So I ran for area representative unopposed in 2006, or right about 2007. And then I have served in elected roles since that day. I served 6 years as the area representative. I served as a secretary, then the vice president, 6 years as the facility representative of Fort Worth Center, then the alternate regional vice president, and now the Southwest regional vice president. Outside of that, I have an 18-year-old son who is graduating. His last day of school is tomorrow of high school, and we look forward to going to his graduation on Tuesday. And then I also have a 6-year-old daughter who's graduating kindergarten. So getting to repeat the entire school process again. And she is the one that definitely keeps me moving in a very quick manner and going down the path at all times. So with that said, appreciate you being here. Thanks for your time. I'll throw it to you, Jamal.
Hello, everyone. I'm Daniels-Haltom, currently NACA's National Training Representative, and I started my career as well in the military, but in the Air Force, slightly higher ASVAB, so I got to go to the Air Force and enjoyed my career there. Then transitioned. I did 6 years from 1999 to 2005, and then I got out, worked at a couple contract towers, one in the New England region, both now NACA towers, Groton and Connecticut. Then moved on to Martin State Tower in Middle River, Maryland, right outside of Baltimore. Was waiting for the FAA to pick me up. That happened in 2007. Went to Las Vegas Tracon, transitioned from there to Tamiami Tower in Miami, Florida, and then back to Las Vegas in 2010 to Las Vegas Tower. In 2011, got asked to fill a vacant spot on the E-board as a secretary. Did that for a couple months, and then the president and VP said, hey, why don't you just do the president stuff for the remainder of this term and then run going forward. So 2012, I did just that, ran for FAC rep, and served for 4 terms. Didn't complete the last term because I became the national training rep in 2019. Back in 2016, I was on the slate book contract negotiating team, and I've just tried to be an asset wherever NACA saw me, be it either in an appointed or elected role. Really fond of the union, what unions do in general, and particularly what NACA does, not only for us, but for our families. And that's kind of what I try to keep in the forefront as it relates to families. I do have a daughter. Her 21st birthday was just yesterday, so just hoping she's okay because she was having a lot of fun. So that's it for me. As both of these guys said, look forward to the interaction with you all, and really hope the exchange goes well.
Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate the peek into who you are as people as well. Now, obviously, the town halls are set up for the maximum amount of engagement, and we're certainly going to go to the question and answer portion in just a minute. But we'd like to start out. I don't know if you guys heard, there's a few issues out there. People are talking about lots of different issues that NAC is facing, and we'd like to give Nick and Jamal an opportunity to touch on any wide variety of their thoughts and ideas on a multitude of subjects. So we'll start there. We'll turn it back over to Nick and Jamal, and then we'll segment into the Q&A portion. So, guys, the floor is yours.
I appreciate it, Aaron. One of the things you're going to find with this town hall is it's going to be very indicative of our style of leadership, and something that I'll speak to here in just a moment. But your questions are going to go into an open chat. Aaron will explain that to you. You'll raise your hand if you want. Ask your questions. Turn on the camera. We're a family. Let's have the discussion, no matter what it is, because it's about how do we get better, how do we improve, and I'm very grateful to see so many people that are willing to step up and challenge the status quo, to look at our union through a different lens and say, are we doing the best we can? Can we be better? And how do we get there? Because when we sit silent in the corners, we sit there and wait for somebody else to do it, this union moves past them and becomes a small group without anyone else engaged and involved in it. So with that being said, I think we'll naturally hit the questions. And if we don't, we'll make sure we bring them up. But you all are going to be the ones that drive the conversation. I'm sure pay, contract, employee movement, mental health is quite often a big one. Any of those, if it's something completely different, off topic, you have different ways to attack it. Let us know. But the one that usually doesn't come up is when we talk about the ideals and foundations and principles around leadership, and why Jamal and I are running as a team. Jamal has been integral in helping myself grow, learn, and him sharing his knowledge with me. One of the things that he taught me early on was that there's no knowledge in this union that should be proprietary. We should be out there continuously finding ways to ensure our members have the information so they can have can make well-informed decisions. And we can have well-informed discussions. But when we're all we're taking information, coalescing it from one person, and then just divvying it out on occasion, it puts us all at odds with one another instead of a foundation to have healthy debate, look at our ultimate growth, and really know what was the reason and rationale behind where we're going and what we're doing. And that leadership is a team sport. It's not something that can be done on your own. No one can go out there and just say, I got this all by myself. It takes two people that trust each other. It takes a team that trusts each other. It takes somebody who's going to push you, and it takes another individuals who are going to give you the time and space to operate, and yet challenge you at the same time. We do not need a board of yes people. We need a board of representatives. We need a board of advocates, not just 12 people making decisions for what those 12 think is best, what this union and the membership thinks is best. And ultimately, somebody has to take that and determine what the path forward looks like and be able to answer why they decided to go down that road. Excited to be a part of it. And with that, I'll turn it over to my brother Jamal.
Yeah. So for me, the message that I want to get out is why we have the style we have and why the town halls are so important to us. We want to be able to communicate with members and have members communicate with us. And we broke them up into regions and subcategories just so we could kind of bucket it into issues that might be specific, but by no means was it meant to separate. We actually want to unite. That's part of what I believe in. That's foundational to me, is that everyone's treated fairly and that fair is not just the minimum, but that we're treated fairly and we're all treated well. The turnout has been as big as 200 and as low as I think 20. The turnout for this particular one is somewhat low, and it's been, the elephant in the room is those regions where the RVP for that particular region doesn't support us. We haven't had very well attended town halls, and to me that is a mistake. We should be all promoting one another and listening to one another. When Rich had his Western Pacific town hall, I definitely jumped on it because I wanted to hear what he had to say to our members. I was supportive of it. I think we have to be supportive of one another, and having discourse is something that is how we grow. Siloing information or trying to block people out from information is what hurts our union and eventually will fracture it to a point of no repair. We have people who have been in this union for only about 5 years or less, and those people have not, in my opinion, seen our union function at its highest levels, be it because of COVID and Paul and Trish not being able to finish their term in their standard way of doing business. And quite frankly, in this current term, by having leaders that don't go out and engage with the people as much as we've seen in the past, I think we've lost things. We want to return that, and this is part of how we can use modern technology to interface. We'll do these things when elected, and we'll also have our agency counterparts, because it's important for all of our members to be getting the same message and not parsed out messages that end up pitting us against one another. So thank you all for attending. Even though there's not a lot of people, hopefully we get a lot of questions, and then you spread the message, be it, hey, I liked what they said, or I didn't, but at least you got an opportunity to interface with us with transparency.
Okay, thanks, guys. This is the part where we get to turn it over to you. And it doesn't just have to be questions and answers. Maybe you have ideas you want to share. Maybe you've thought of things and you've seen problems and you've come up with solutions. We want to hear those as well. It doesn't just have to be one thing or another. So just a couple of housekeeping items. 2 ways you can ask your question. You can use the raise your hand feature, which if you go down, just scroll your mouse down to the bottom of the thing, the little tools will pop up and it should be dead center, raise hand. If you're comfortable, if you're in a place where you can, if you want to ask a question through the raise your hand, please don't hesitate to turn your camera on. It makes engagement a little more enjoyable that way. The second way is you can post a question in the chat. If you would, please include your facility where you're from. It makes it easier for us to get a sense of where we're hearing things from. We're not here to hammer softballs over the fence. Don't pull your punches. We're still union members. We're one family. Let's be courteous and respectful. I don't think that's a request that's egregious. But by all means, you've heard something. This is why Nick and Jamal are here so that you can get information from them, straight from them, unfiltered, and then when ballots go out, you can make the best decision. So, and then lastly, I'll say when we call on you, if you're using the raise your hand function, I'll click the thing that allows you to unmute. By all means, you're free to stay off, to stay unmuted until the engagement is over. If you go back on mute, you won't be able to unmute on your own. So you'd have to put your hand back up to let me know that you had more to say or whatnot. So with that, happy to start taking questions, comments, ideas from the audience via the chat or the raise your hand. Here we go. Okay, this one just says iPhone. So if you wouldn't mind iPhone, I will ask you to unmute and let us know who you are.
Hey, what's happening? Sorry, I'm on vacation traveling. Bob Obama, Indy Center.
Hi, Bob.
Hello. Yeah, so I had a question. I guess my kind of concern, I don't think really anyone's kind of addressed it. It's kind of like financials overall of like, I feel like the union as a whole is kind of spending a lot of money. Like prime example is like CFS. Like I guess my question's always been like, why do we spend this money on CFS when like the airlines are making record profits and all this stuff, yet the government agency who can never get enough money is ponying up for the safety conference for aviation. So I guess like travel, like all the meetings and classes, like why isn't some of that stuff being done on Zoom to save money? I guess that's kind of like what is the thoughts on that going forward? Because it's one of my biggest issues.
Hey, thanks, Bob. Thanks for your question, man. It's nice to hear from you. So one of the things I think we need to get out into the ethos is that we are not a union that's not solvent. We're extremely solvent and doing quite well. We do have money and savings in the multi-millions, and that doesn't mean that we want to by any means blow that. But being a smaller union and having a smaller imprint, when we have opportunities to lead aviation, we have to take advantage of that. If you know the history of CFS, it went from a very small meeting of very few people to now the premier safety conference in aviation. To give that up, to give up that stranglehold would make no sense unless there were things we couldn't deliver to our members because of that money or that expenditure. We do have new eyes on it. We have a current safety rep that's looking for ways to streamline revenue at that event so that we can reduce the costs. We do and always should be financially responsible and look for ways to make all of our ventures as financially prudent as we possibly can, including, as you said, using Zoom as some of the avenues. And we did that. We used that during COVID, and sometimes that's good. Sometimes it works, but many of our courses, many of the ideas that we have to transfer from those with knowledge to those who need to be able to spread that knowledge require face-to-face intervention. And we use that, and we try to be prudent about that and be very surgical with how we use the money for that. I don't believe us to be a wasteful organization. I don't think the numbers show that we are a wasteful organization. And I'll just end on this, Bob. I know that oftentimes people speak to, well, there's an absorbent amount of money spent on booze or food. When you break that down on a per person basis, just using, let's say, RT1 and the other NACA classes that are taught at Las Vegas, the amount of people, when you really do the math, you're talking about $30 a person on food and drinks when it really boils down, which actually comes in under our budgetary allowance for things like that. So we have to be prudent. We need to be frugal where we can. But when people give up their time and energy to come out and learn, and they're away from their families, often on their own leave, to have a drink with a union member, break bread, and still learn during that time is something that's invaluable. And I think it's how we are always stronger than those that we are going up against in any endeavor. Nick, maybe you have something to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you absolutely nailed where we are, and let's talk about where we have to go. And the use of these types of town halls, these meetings, should it continue to grow. It's making sure that we as a union, right, we quite often create these own products at 2 a.m. ourselves on some committee trying to figure out a way to put them forward. We have to make them engaging. We have to ensure that the members have the buy-in to go and attend them as well. There are aspects of, some of the courses that could be done. There's some that can't. And when you have an RT1 that's discussing heavy strategy in things like that with the agency, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to explore them. One of the things is I've recently become the National Training Committee chair. The very first thing that I asked for on the committee was, where are all the contracts? And this is just to give you an example, Bob, of the style that Jamal and I bring. Immediately said, I'd like to see every contract that we have in Vegas, because maybe there is a chance to do one in the central part of the U.S. or on the eastern, in the East Coast. Move this around. What are the costs? And our committee had never seen the contracts. They actually lied in different emails and files with different persons. So for our first time ever, we now have all of our contracts in one place being reviewed by the National Training Committee, so we can begin to explore those things. But it takes somebody who's willing to engage on these ideas, who's not going to just leave the ways that it's always been done and then shake their head at you and saying, yeah, it's a good idea. It takes somebody who's actually going to dig in, do the work, and see what the chances of us breaking out of that mold are, or be able to come back and tell you it actually makes no sense for us to do that, and here's why. That should be our charge, and what we'd be able to stand in front of you as the president and executive vice president and do. But I love that you're thinking about it, and really appreciate you kicking it off for us.
Thanks for the question, Bob. Appreciate it. Just wanted to let the rest of the participants know that you don't have to wait for an answer to come to completion to put your hand up or to post your question in the chat. We will make sure that no one leaves here with their question unanswered. So by all means, if you do post in the chat, if you would post it to everyone. Some of these chats have gotten pretty heavily inundated with the messages, and so if it's just to a specific person like myself as the host, it would be almost impossible to keep up with. So waiting to see some hands go up or some questions in the chat. Maybe we can use this time while you guys are thinking about your questions. I know for Nick and Jamal, one of the hottest topics out there maybe you guys could speak on is, of course, the slate book, the extension, the reopening, the executive orders, and how that works. Maybe that's I know that's shown up in almost every town hall prior to this, so maybe that's something you guys could talk on a little bit while they're formulating their questions.
Well, I would say that let's see if it comes up organically. One thing we don't want to do is force a conversation. We will have that conversation most certainly, but allow people to work their way into it. I know these people have questions. I see names that I'm aware of and plenty that I'm not. But again, feel free to ask us questions. This is not a gotcha moment. We're not trying to hide from anything. We just want to have answered the questions that you want and make this your time. And if not, we will fill the time with information, most certainly.
And as you say that, we have a question from Z Dubek. Z, the floor is yours.
Hey guys, I'm working on getting my video going here. There we go. Hey,
Zach.
This one might be kind of more of a local question, but one of the things that we're dealing with, Zach Dobek, O'Hare Tower, I suppose I should say that. One of the things that we're dealing with at O'Hare specifically, at least in my opinion, is some issues with the NTI, and that basically kind of at the end of last year, we underwent, we're in the process of major overhauls of our airport design, major construction, changes to, historic procedures that we've done for years. And I kind of called for a moratorium on training just so that we can give the OJTIs a chance to say, hey, like, let's learn this new airport because we really haven't seen it, right? Everything that we've done in the past for the past 20 plus years no longer really applies. And when I brought that up, I was kind of met with like, well, there's really no appetite to stop training, right? And I think that the NTI has done a lot of good things. We've seen our checkout time decrease at O'Hare, which I think is good. But I think that at least locally, we're not using the impediments correctly. I don't know if there's, have you guys thought about adding impediments, especially when it comes to, construction? Is there anything that you guys have thought about as far as, the national training order, right? And then you have these unique facilities. I always say that, I work at O'Hare Tower in Chicago. I can't go to the next tower down the road and do the job. It's entirely different. So why do we have a training plan or this training initiative that basically affects all the towers, all the centers, or whatever at the same level, right? Have you guys given any thought on some adaptations? Have you guys heard any complaints about the NTI and things that you want to kind of see changed in the future?
Hey, thanks, Zach. It's good seeing you, brother. So the NTI, it was a lot there that you asked.
Sorry.
So we'll try to cover it all, and if we don't, stay unmuted so we can finish the dialogue properly. The NTI, like any of our processes, should always evolve. So let me give you a little bit of the background and then tell you why we decided to take a national approach as opposed to while allowing for much local adaptation, right? It was something that we were certain we were going to do. The agency came to the union and said that they wanted to mandate 20 hours of training for our level 10, 11, and 12 facilities because they're getting a lot of pressure from Congress as they say they need to hire. So all the way back in 2019 when they were already max hiring in 2017, 18, and 19 and not seeing a lot of fruit out of it from the training. So the agency comes back and they said they wanted to mandate that, right? At that time, we said that wouldn't work for us. We can't tell them what they can do as it relates to that, but we'd be willing to be part of a work group to address it. Myself, Nick Daniels, Nicole Sarunas, and 4 agency counterparts got together to work on that project. We sent out surveys to about 80 reps and got, I think, 72 replies, somewhere in that range, that really said, that built the parameters for how we ended up making the training look, right? How we ended up making the OJT expectations to be laid out. The impediments grew as we also talked to reps ourselves, managers, sent out a survey to see what are the issues that keep you from training at your facilities. So that's how the impediments list grew. And then we carved it and shaped it where it has to have intervention at the local level between the air traffic manager and FAC rep in order for it to be properly implemented. And if there's hiccups along the way, there was automatic reporting to the RVP and GM level, RVP and DO level, and then nationally. Originally, it was wildly supported by all, right? We have COVID, it gets shut down. It resumes in March of 2022. Again, wildly supported by all, including our current president of the union. And Mick Devine, frankly, for that matter. As time has gone on, Reddit says it's unpopular and the support for it goes away. I'm saying that to say that if you had national direction, that you don't deviate from the policy, that you don't treat it as mandates, that you don't do those things that you're talking about, train when you shouldn't be training, like we've had in the past, we would be better served. So it's not that it's a national program that we're forcing down anyone's throat. What it is a national program that's not getting national support currently. And that's hurting our locals. That's hurting our regions and that's hurting our locals. What Nick and I would do is get on camera with our counterparts and say, this is the policy. This is the way it's to be administered. No exceptions. So there wouldn't be these one-offs where some people treat it as mandates, where the union's not being involved. But again, and I'm trying to shorten this up, what happened is it got political and some people don't support it anymore. So in those regions, it tends to struggle a little bit more. In the regions where the RVPs are leaning in, following the guidance that we're providing, addressing issues as they come up. Sometimes we get on district calls if we have to with the ARVP and the GM, FAC rep, ATM, and we have addressed things such as that, and it's actually done well. But some of our regions aren't using the resources because it appears to me that they want the NTI to fail because somehow they think it hurts me. I've been a CPC since 2011. Doesn't hurt me at all. It hurts our trainees. It hurts our trainers.
Gotcha. Thanks, Jamal. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate the question. Okay, we have one from the chat. Matt Rivas says, pay is by far the biggest issue in my facility. With inflation being as high as it is and the cost of living increasing, what's your plan to offset these increased financial burdens and secure us a raise?
I'll start out with that one. The first thing I want to dispel when we're here is that somehow the misinformation that either lives in an anonymous forum or usually out of Mick Devine's mouth is that we don't want to go negotiate a contract. That somehow Jamal and I just want to extend a contract only. The only way an extension was ever brought up was because the president of our union brought to the National Executive Board that the administrator wanted to see if we were interested in extending a contract, which we actually leaned back and said, we don't want to extend. The only way we would extend is if you can't do anything else to delay the decision, because we should get closer to the U.S. presidential election. And then in association with that, make sure we still have the ability to negotiate in 2026. So I want to dispel that before we go in the rest, because I couldn't agree more that pay is on the forefront of every issue. We have Jamal and I have many ideas around attacking it based on what our circumstances look like, right? It doesn't have to just wait for a term negotiation. We've had a president that didn't decide to engage in 2022 or 2023 for pay, and now saying, just give me 3 more years and I'll go do it in the next term. Jamal and I want to engage either via MOU if we haven't opened up our contract yet, or there's executive orders that are in place. The MOUs do not have to be a singular topic issue. They've addressed pay. It's been done many times in the past. There's many examples of it. But we need to get into a world where we reestablish the pay bands. We know we have the cap to contend with. That's a long-term project. But right now, the level 4 through 12 gap is widened through these percentage increase, or we're just dragging the lower levels along. We need to reestablish those bands, the overlap in them, and then your progression through them. And there's many things that we can do to engage in how you move through them. One is increasing the longevity raise. We would immediately, and that's your June raise, that 1.6. Let's go and engage in, negotiating a higher rate and a higher percentage to move you through it faster. Another thing is find opportunities to where that certain roles that we do, such as CIC, that certification moves you in your band, and then you make 10% on top of it. We spend more time on CIC than we have in our entire career with the staffing shortage and us covering for how many supervisors are gone out there. Then we need to look at new ideas like a longevity bonus, where how many years you've been at your facility, whether if you've been a CPC consecutively at your facility 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, there should be a payout to you, payout for experience, or payout because we're not even, many of our facilities are locked in and can't move in the staffing shortage. It's going to take us 8 to 9 years to get out of that. Then we need to start looking at other premiums to put money in your pocket in the current times. Saturday pay. We've come out of COVID. We know that our weekends are obviously coveted in a different way than ever in the past. We need to look at and engage for there in your differentials and your premiums in any way that we can continue to move those. The last thing I'll mention, and I'll turn it over to Jamal, is also on our overtime. If we're going to be spending this much amount of time on overtime, we need to be looking at that differently as well, and engaging either in a tiered system where after so many hours, you get like after 200, 250 hours, and then it's a two times. Then after 500 hours, it's 2.5 times. There should be a cost to making us live at work. Also, it's an increased cost to us when we do live at work. Or if that's not going to be, let's say that isn't the path that we go down, then let's add, if it's your highest 3, we should add it to part of our retirement, because those hours worked in that year shouldn't be, will they get discounted to the government later on because we're not, standing in that our high 3 by salary didn't make up for, being at work for almost every one of our weekends for the entire year. So those are just some of the concepts. I know we can't wave a magic wand and just make all of them happen. It's going to take people engaging in either full term negotiation or an MOU, but I'm sure there's others Jamal wants to hit from there.
Yeah, I think one of the things to make very clear, Matt, is that we don't have to wait until a contract is open, right? The only thing we should be bound by is our imagination, right? The agency recognizes. I found this on the web. Well, I'm sorry. The agency recognizes just as much as we do that the economy has changed, but the term is that our CBA can't be opened until 2026, right? That doesn't mean we need to wait until 2026 to try to address pay. We have a history in this union of addressing pay via MOU, both as we transitioned out of the AT pay scale, the GS pay scale into the AT pay scale, and when we extended our Red Book at one point, we got paid through MOUs. We can look at a lot of our issues that are being hung up and not addressed because we've been waiting on advocates since 2016. And sometimes we hear it's not going to be in place until 2030. Well, that's unacceptable. And associated with that is an MVT MOU that has a number of multipliers that would be potentially added to the TCI to account for things like ground multipliers. It reduces the ground complexity multipliers in our towers. It reduces the terrain clearance above airspace in order to actually to have a terrain multiplier. There's loads of things that we have that should be being looked at now. And because the agency is saying they can't have a system that they control programmed until 2030, we shouldn't be waiting until 2030. Anyone who does wait till 2030 or 2026 is doing you a disservice. Anyone who extends a CBA and then tries to blame it on someone else as part of the extension of a CBA, and then blame it on someone else and tell you there's nothing they can do until the CBA is open, is not telling you the truth. All of these things, every single thing Nick said and every single thing that I said, would have to be negotiated. And we cannot promise you that the answer would be yes. But what you would know is that we would engage in those things. One last thing, because I do know we have lots of facilities that work in Class Delta airspaces, is to look at that as well. Look at Class Delta airspace and ask, why is it not getting a multiplier? Why does Bravo get 25%, Charlie get 10%, and Delta get nothing when our Delta controllers are sometimes working as hard or harder than other controllers? We don't want to punish anyone that's already being paid and take anything from them. But what if we had a 5% multiplier for our Class Delta? What would that do? Another thing is, when we talk about pay, we've had so many downgrades of facilities. What are we doing to prevent downgrades? And one would say the system just says it has to downgrade you, but it doesn't. The contract's very clear that we want to avoid fluctuations in pay. So why are we being downgraded? What services have changed? And let's look at those. And if those services are likely to come back in short order, why aren't we preventing those downgrades? We have to do everything we can to put money in the pockets of air traffic controllers, because as I said, it's not just you, it's your families. It's how we integrate ourselves into the community, and we take that serious. So anyone that thinks anything otherwise is sadly mistaken, and we're happy that you asked that question so we could clear it up. One last thing on that. Most of these ideas have come as a result of going to over 150 facilities and listening to the people and trying to come up with solutions for the things that they're saying are problems for them. AG pay scale, we'd like to get rid of that as well and start our controllers off at their first developmental phase so that they're not struggling and thinking about how are they going to afford rent when they should be thinking about how am I going to learn this all important, complex job that is going to be a career for me. So hope that makes you clear that we have plenty of ideas and we're not limited to a CBA, and we're certainly not going to wait until that time comes up to start addressing.
Thanks for the question, Matt. Thanks for the responses, guys. Let's go over to Carpino's iPhone for a question.
Hello. How you guys doing? Thanks for taking my question. It's the same question I've been asking for a decade. What are your thoughts on creating new facility definitions in the next contract, whenever that is, reference like how the agency combined TRACON's Dayton approach and Columbus approach, and we have a tower. So now that we're just classified as a simple up-down, but in my opinion, we're a combined TRACON with a tower. So what do you think of creating new facility definitions that accurately define what it is we do on a day-to-day basis? Thanks.
Hey, Philip. Thanks, brother. This is one, and I'll pass. I'm sure Nick has on it, so I'll try to be brief. You brought this to my attention. I was very confused by it, and you talked me through it. And by the end of the conversation, I understood what you're saying. And because we had that conversation when we went to Jacksonville Tower, an approach which is very similarly aligned, we were able to, with some level of granularity, have that conversation and say, look, we recognize. So I think things that we should do is have people that are affected, yourself, Jacksonville members or the FAC rep, sit down, propose ideas to address the uniqueness of your scenario, and then present that to the agency and look for a solution to it. I don't think the agency's interest is in holding us down. I think the agency's interest is in paying us appropriately, but we have to bring that to them. So where there's gaps, if that's a gap and something that we could truly overcome, we should pursue it. Again, if we were told no, you should see the work, you should know that the work was done, and you should have faith that we tried our absolute best to address it, and not that we just said, well, it is what it is, that's what the CBA says, so we can't move forward. The CBA is always the floor, and you can build on it. But it's a very high floor that we can only go up from, and that's something that we should absolutely look at. So thanks, Phil. Nick, I know you went there personally, so you can speak to it obviously as well.
Hey, listen, that is, as you said it earlier, the amount of information you gain from going and spending times and engaging with the members at the facilities. Something Jamal and I said in our first term, one of us will step in all 313 facilities. Phil, you took the time to educate me as well. I've looked at every facility differently since when we walk in and see either a large Tracon or a combined tower and Tracon, to take a level 9 and a level 8 and combine them and get a level 8 out of it and have no ability really to move on from there, shows you the system is broke, and that it's going to take leaders to take it's going to take leaders that will take action to do, whether it's, like you said, a new classification airspace. It's a different way of approaching large Tracons that have, a 40, 50, 60. I think in your case, it was something like 72 satellite airports. And some of the ones that you're servicing are busier than the one that you're at today. The landscape has changed, and we have to change with it. That means changing Appendix A and looking at how we do our classification index and how we do our multipliers. So yes, it will take that, Philip. Would love for you to have your help in leading the charge with it, because there's not just your facility, it's several others out there that need to change as well. And we look forward to being I would say, a champion of that exact cause.
Okay.
Only thing I would add to that is I want to make it very clear. We're not printing money. We're not saying any of this is easy. We're not the everyone gets a Sunday and free Skittles and ice cream crew. We'll roll up our sleeves and absolutely pursue all things that make sense in an effort to have our members properly compensated for the work that they do. So I know it's easy in election cycles to say, I'll do this, I'll do everything. What we promise is hard work, and we'll actually, like I said, solicit your support in getting it done, because we don't have to be the people that solve every issue that comes up. We have to be conduits to solving those problems.
That's very well said. So I'm going to swallow my pride because we have a question from the chat and put my glasses on so I can read it accurately. This is from Matt Bartlett from Fargo Tower. How do you plan to further address staffing? It might be done by fall, but how would you address implementing the CRWG numbers? And how would you get the FAA to increase hiring and getting more trainees to CPCs at a faster rate? We applaud max hiring in reauthorization, but we should know that a change from 1,500 a year to 1,800 a year will do nothing to fix our CPC shortfall. What other options would you explore?
Matt, it's absolutely something that has to be explained and shown to not only just air traffic controllers, but I think the public needs to know what we're in for, as well as making the agency see what the next few years look like. Because you're absolutely right. Increasing the number of people by a few hundred in the academy, which will ultimately result in approximately, and Jamal could walk you through all the percentages of it. If you hire 1,800, in about 2 years, you'll have 900 CPCs. That's kind of just the easy way to cut them to the math. With that being said, some of the things that Jamal and I want to explore is when you go out and you visit again with facilities, you have an entire group in flight service right now that is a untapped resource. They are a 2152 with a medical clearance, with a security clearance, passed all the tests, and that there is right now they have to apply in a completely different bid instead of having a way for them to fast track into the FAA for the air traffic control side. Many of them are providing services day in and day out at their remote locations that they go out to, in some levels of working a traffic in a pattern. We should be working with the agency to flood the flight service market, bring some of those persons over while increasing our previous experience hires, and yes, then pursuing the long-term and ensuring the long-term for max hiring. So those are a couple points on that. The other ones will be ensuring that we as a union stay engaged in training when we want to talk about increasing CPCs. And I'm not going to steal that thunder from Jamal on that part of it as our national training representative. I'm sure he'll address that portion as well. So Jamal, if you want to take over the training part and anything else that we want to cover on looking about more ways that we'll get people here, by all means.
Yeah, brother, and thanks from Fargo. Understand Fargo is one of those facilities that, let's face it, it's a little harder to staff because You got to get people that are really willing to bear that cold, to go to kind of what is kind of a remote location. And how do we get that done? Well, one is knowing the information that's before you and not being wowed by buzzwords. As you said it, max hiring. They say right now the agency identifies max hiring at about 1,800, right? And if you say, well, we're going to max hire to what? Max hire for the next 5 years? Well, what does that do? Right? Or do we max hire until we reach the CRWG numbers, which is an entirely different conversation. Also, it's important to note in 2016, we hired 1,680 controllers. In 2017, 1,880. And in 2016, 1,786. So we were already max hiring, if you will, before COVID. What we have to do is train efficiently, train effectively. Those facilities like Fargo, who likely don't have a simulator, it was also in that same bill, put in the bill to ensure that we have simulators in our buildings. Simulators have been shown to reduce training time by 27%. And that's having a simulator that's remote. If we all had our own simulators, we could use them much more frequently, and we wouldn't probably have the issues that we do as waiting for seasonal traffic to occur. You can use the simulator to augment and see things that you haven't seen, and then you could get the certifications more efficiently and then move people through the system. So we have to do those type of things, continue to push the cutting edge on those type of things so that people can get to where they want to go, not just be forced to stay where they are, and we can get them moving along more efficiently. So we have to take a multi-pronged attack at it. I think his name was Matt. Was it Matt?
Yes.
Yeah, we have to take a multi-pronged attack at addressing those issues. But the CRWG numbers, while a gigantic win for NACA, we all should be applauded, all that participated legislatively through LR, our staff, all of NACA should be applauded for making that happen. And now the hard work begins of making sure that we efficiently and effectively certify, hire, and certify. And last thing on that is I do think we need to re-engage the agency about a third shift at the academy. When I went through the academy back in 2007, there was a midnight shift there, and that would be able to potentially increase the throughput if we were able to do that, which would open us up. So now max hiring would go up by about a third.
The last component of it that I added, Jamal alluded to it, is you have to fix internally and improve our employee movement system. We'll talk about ideas around it. I'm sure questions will come up, but if we start placing people and looking at a new way of where 85% isn't the 100% at a facility, increasing the vacancies in our 8s and 9s, have moved to a method where we're staffing facilities at a higher rate, because we're not going to hit that 14,335, which is the max CPC number anytime soon. In the next 8 to 9 years, we won't be at that. We have to maneuver and do things differently in the interim until we have a well-staffed system again. When you start moving people into 8s and 9s, that then can reduce the training times in 10s, 11s, and 12s, and those facilities can finally get selected from, instead of it flowing around them, and targeting, instead of it being a lottery, targeting your moves to them and saying anybody who wants to go a level 9 and below, if you want to go from Fargo to San Antonio, Texas, then we should be able to put somebody in the academy behind you. When they get local control, then you get released to San Antonio in 6 months. Those types of things will actually start clearing out the system, be competitive for some of the larger facilities, and then ultimately increase the pool and the experience levels that the 11s and 12s are selecting from. It won't solve everything, but you have to start chipping away at it, and you cannot stay in the same approach that you did for a well-staffed system as you did in a critically staffed system.
Okay, thanks for the question, Matt. Hope it's starting to warm up there in Fargo. So we're back to the chat, and we've got Christine from Chicago TRACON. Says, we've all heard the rumors, Nick. How do you plan to support Mick if you and he both win this election?
I don't know what all rumors have been said, because there are so many rumors that are out there in this election. But I'll start with, I don't even want to have to think of that being the reality, that our union doesn't see the brilliance, the experience that Daniels-Haltom brings to the table. Ultimately, job as the president, if elected, is to execute the duties of our office and make our union successful. If Mick is elected, he's part of that. He has to, be operating in the world of wanting to be successful as well. Otherwise, we won't function as well. But with that said, I think if Mick was to be elected, it would naturally hinder our abilities to move forward. I know he's out there making tons of promises. One of the things is, I will tell you right now, I'll just be very upfront with you, and it's the type of president I plan to be, is if he is elected, he can promise everything he wants. I've seen his lack of leadership skills and his ability to communicate, and you see what happens, the conspiracy theories, the one line when there's a full paragraph that's really out there. He will not be a chief or lead negotiator for this union. He will get stomped on, and we will be, our union and our membership will be at a detriment because of that. So he will be able to effectuate his duties as executive vice president. We would work together, but I'm asking all of you to not hinder me in this union. And by all means, make sure that you elect the right person for it. Somebody who has a resume, somebody who has the record, somebody who has gone out and engaged with the membership and isn't starting from day one with the agency of, well, I had a cool shirt and sticker that said, fix my F and pay. That's going to put us backwards from day one. So it's up to you to make that right decision. But ultimately, I'll work with whatever team that this union decides for me to work with as president.
Jamal, I'd be remiss if I didn't give you an opportunity to speak there if you would like to.
Hey, the members are gonna have a choice. I know the experience that I bring to the table. I know of all the people who talk about increasing pay or moving pay. I'm one of, I believe, 4 active union members that have actually done that on behalf of our union in our last contract. I know that I wasn't there for the ride. I actually participated in that heavily and made an imprint on our union that is forever lasting. So if the members say that they want Mick, then that'll be the life that they get. I know that I have a tremendous amount of credibility with the agency. I know that I've moved training forward in a manner that I don't think others thought was necessarily possible, but not just me. People like Nick Lutz, who I see on the call. I believe in team building. I believe in expanding who we are as a union every single day, and I'm dedicated to that. But again, if people saw otherwise and selected Mick, I would ask that all of us support our entire executive board and find a way for it to be promising or fruitful. I would say, having negotiated a contract, that his style would be detrimental to our union. The in your face, give me, give me, give me. You can be professional and move the ball. I've done it, and I know we'll do it in the future.
Thanks, Jamal. Thanks, Nick. And thanks, Christine, for the question. Rachel Gilmore from Indy Center asks, what is your plan to address the barriers our controllers face in asking for help with their mental health?
I'll start out with, this is one of the questions I think Jamal and I probably get pulled aside the most when we go to facilities. People feel on edge to have this discussion with, those around them, leadership, but they know that ultimately somebody has to help champion this cause. And it's not just a cause in awareness. You've probably heard me say this if you heard me speak about it. I have no problems talking to you all about it so you understand the passion that Jamal and I bring around it. My mom died of suicide when I was 10 years old. She went and I did not see me grow up or be successful. I mean, she was dealing and battling with demons that I could never fathom. All I could do was learn from them, but just learning from them and bringing awareness only goes so far. I used to think that was kind of the way it had to be done. Right? We just got to talk about it. What we need is prevention. What we need is to engage the agency and bring the realities and truth to it. And that starts with a level of negotiations as well, whether it be through an MOU, through term negotiations. We need the agencies to start saying they understand that this is a part of this. One of the things that we'd immediately propose is an optional 1 hour of pay period for any controller to use the services of EAP for a level of counseling. And maybe it helps only one person that first year. But damn it, that's one less person we're sending out a GoFundMe for to help their family because that person wasn't able to have any help or cope with, or was just hiding in silence. We can no longer be in silence, and it's going to take leaders that don't sit back and say, well, that's not an issue we can really address. It's got to be somebody else. Who better than the air traffic controllers, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, to be out there on behalf of all the laborers, of all the workers of this country, and say, this is real. This is something that must be addressed, and we're not going to be quiet about it. But Jamal, I don't know if there's anything you want to add from there, but thank you for bringing up the question, because it's absolutely something that we can't sit back and just hope that somebody else does something about.
Yeah, I think beyond or before even the ultimate and hopefully preventable sacrifice of something like suicide, there's mental health that doesn't reach that level that we have to address. There's just the constant pressure of doing this job with excellence that weighs on people. It's the time away from our families. It's not watching our children grow up. It's missing ball games. All of those things add anxiety. Now you lay on top of that with the economy changing, our dollar not going as far as it used to go. That creates anxiety and could lead to depression. And we need to have avenues for people to address that without being punished, while also recognizing that this is a job that you have to maintain a medical for, and get out the obstacles to actually being or having your issues addressed. I know living in Las Vegas for a long time, when I first moved back to the East Coast, the seasonal changes bothered me more than I thought they did. And I had to be honest and be vulnerable enough to talk to someone about that. Being a leader that is out amongst the people and providing an example of, we don't have to be superheroes. I'll tell you what, it's anxious for me to hear my name dragged through the mud constantly on an anonymous message board, or people tell me I can't read. Things like that create anxiety for me. And look, I have to address those things by means, and everyone needs to feel comfortable doing that, so that the awareness does turn into prevention. So, that's where I am with it, is we have to be champions of it, be leaders about it, and take away the stigma that's associated with it. And no better people to do it than those who are elected in the highest positions of the union.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Rachel, for the question. And Jamal, thanks for sharing that last piece there. It's amazing how brave people are behind a keyboard, and without realizing that it actually causes problems for other people. I think we're going to go back to Zach from O'Hare. Zach, go ahead, brother.
Oh, hey guys, just want to piggyback off after a couple of the chat questions. The first one, it's pretty evident to me that almost the NEB seems to be pretty fractured or divided right now between you guys and Rich and Mick. If you guys get elected, not only how do you mend some of those fractures, how do you try and build that unity back and get the people support? Not just, oh, we're going to be good leaders. Do you guys have concrete, specific plans on how you try to kind of get some of the people that don't necessarily support you on your side? And then the second part is on the other side of the aisle, right? We have an FAA administrator who almost unilaterally kind of came out with these new fatigue rules, right? How do you mend the relationship with the FAA and say, hey, like this is who we want to be. We want to have this different relationship. We always want to have a seat at the table. How do you, do you have any concrete plans to fix that relationship as well?
Hey, Nick, which part do you want to answer? I'll answer whichever you don't.
I'll take the fracture part. How about we'll go from there. So I'll start off with that, Zach, again, something that is a reality, right? And I think people call it a fracture when, where I think I see it from my seat. It's brand new to this National Executive Board. I was me and Brian Schallenberger, who Brian's now retiring. So Mike Christine is the RVP elect. We were the two new persons to this board. They'd all had a 3-year head start, and some obviously longer, of working together, of being together, knowing one another, and went in eyes wide open to this. Fracture comes from, I would say the word fracture comes from when persons don't agree, but it's really a group of RVPs who are saying, we're not that. We're not willing to stand up and say we're going in that direction, or that we're willing to be led in the direction that Rich is honestly trying to take it down, which is a person who ultimately takes all the information, distributes what little parts he wants to wear, and then goes out and uses that and tries to manipulate people and play them all against each other. Whether you're in high school or whether you're in a professional career, that there's going to be somebody that goes out and says, speaks kindly to you to your face, and the second you walk away, that they're going to talk trash about you. That's not what this union should be, and that's how Jamal and I have tried to lead this campaign. I don't care who you are, who you support. You can come up wearing the largest "I love Rich, I love Mick" or whoever button. You're part of this union, and Jamal and I absolutely accept that. We will have discussions around your ideas. We'll have discussions about how we can improve things that they want to see. But it comes from leaders setting the example. And I think with us being successful and running our campaign that way, our members will know you don't have to be scared to say that you're supporting somebody. You don't have to be scared to get on a town hall and ask a question. You shouldn't be scared to be outspoken in our union and have differing ideas. But when we all realize we're on one team going in the same direction, right now we feel rudderless and we're not going in a direction. And that's part of the problem. We don't have a purpose, and members don't know their purpose inside that union. And that becomes a union of just give me stuff. And that's where you see what you would call the fracture, is we don't want to be a union of, I'll show up at your facility and promise you an MOU. We're a union, and this is how we're going to address this problem for all. Not to these specialty one-offs, this is a problem for all of us. And this is collectively how we're going to move the ball forward. So I think a lot of that, Zach, is just you're seeing a group saying we're not willing to follow a king. We will say something if there is a problem. And that has been part of this democratic process of that's why your term expires. We get a chance to elect somebody else. And that's why 5 RVPs support Jamal and I that originally had supported him. Okay.
Yeah, and your second part of your question is with the administrator. Again, I point to Nick Luch, because we work together closely in training. I've had several counterparts in training since I've been the national training rep since 2019. I believe 4 or 5, but all of them have gone to a higher position. I didn't have a lot of time to get to know who they were, but I knew my job for NACA was to hit the ground running and create a connection with them on these are the things that NACA needs to be successful to make the NAS successful. And we're not going to escape being partners in this. At no time do I not meet those obligations and make those duties or meet those duties and understand the duty that NACA has afforded me. So what I'm saying is the administrator was championed by NACA. We put out a call of action to all of our members to say, we support this administrator. We need this administrator so we can move forward. In fact, Rich is on record as saying he personally was part of getting the administrator Senate confirmed. He said that he got ALPA and the flight attendants on board, and that's what got him over. And Mike Whitaker was Senate confirmed as the administrator. The president of the union has a responsibility to ensure that that relationship is tight. And we all talk, Zach, we taught you rep training. You have to train your manager, prepare that person for the job. If they don't know collaboration, we've been around collaboration for years. You got to make sure that they know. You got to make sure that they understand you don't roll things out unilaterally, because we've been the solution for years and will continue to be the solution to what ails this agency, what ails the national airspace system. So I think the way we would overcome that is by doing the job we're asking to do. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. It's not with weekends off. It's not so you can go dirt biking. It's not so you can hang out. This is a hard job that takes all of your energy. If you're not willing to do that, you fail the membership, and that's what happened then. I don't think that the administrator has animus toward the union. I think he didn't have a partner.
And Zach, in case the rumors out there, Jamal and I won't be the guys that go in and lopping off heads that when we were elected. Jamal's been told by Rich told Joel Ortiz, who told Jamal, if he loses, Jamal's going to get fired. For me, it was, if I was to run, I would just have my personal life torn apart. So I don't want to be a part of a union. That's going to be loyalty over competency and expertise. Jamal and I won't be running in saying no one that agreed or everyone that didn't agree with us, we took names. We're not going to have names on a list. We're going to have expectations of leaders. And if we're moving the union forward together, people will see that and want to be a part of it. If they don't want to be a part of it, they'll let us know and we'll work with people that want to step up and get it done. But I expect a whole new world of people being willing to be open instead of being scared to actually get out there and say what they really have to say in fear of being made fun of or being chastised or being cast off, we'll call the quote unquote island. That's not the style that Jamal and I bring or will foster in any way.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that is we've gone again to over 150 facilities, and particularly in y'all's region, in the Eastern region, we have people say, hey, I don't want to take a picture with you because I don't want to get in trouble. We don't ask anyone to do that anyway, right? It's going to be a voluntary thing. But the fact that there's even a notion that there could be some trouble for who you support is something that we can't have going forward. There are people in Las Vegas Tower that I know 100% will vote for Rich and Mick, and that's perfectly fine. I'll never retaliate against someone for who they decided that they want to support in an election. So when you say, how do we fix it? We fix it by starting now and how we're running our campaign. There's no retaliation. Zach, if you told me, Jamal, I love you to death, but I'm voting for Mick, I'd say, hey, man, call me if you need help. That's the type of people we are. And anyone that tells you anything different about me, I'd ask them, show a receipt, because I don't operate that way. And nor does Nick.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the time tonight.
Thanks, Zach. 2 for 2 on great questions. Okay, now we're going to go over to Chrissy's iPhone. Chrissy?
Hey, Aaron, Nick, Jamal. It's Chrissy Lewandowski, Minneapolis Center.
Hello.
My question is related to Rachel's, kind of on the peripheral. I mean, mental health is a huge concern, but is there an avenue to address the antiquated standards of the flight surgeon so people are taking care of their physical health better as well and not hiding conditions due to concerns with that?
Chrissy, thanks for bringing it up because I almost doubled down and went back in for that answer on that earlier and was hoping that it would be brought up in some other mechanism. So you're absolutely on point of that is another world that we have to knock down. Just like we said, the agency owned, or it used to be the agency owns training and we had to find a way in there. And then the agency, continues to be able to just, move whoever they want or can lock down the system when it came to employee movement. They can only place where they want out of the academy. We have found ways to systematically, as a union, move that ball forward and inch our way into every one of those doors. I think Andrew has made a great headway into that world, but now we need to double down and you start putting some true effort behind having the regional flight surgeons be held accountable in the regions, especially in the Great Lakes. Being up there, we have heard the horrors of the regional flight surgeon that just runs either roughshod, intimidates people, holds their medical clearances, there are some type of paper certificate where he could rip them up at any time just because he felt like it, or you made him mad that day. Those are things that we need to start, finding a way through LR and through legislation in the engagements with the agency to say there has to be a check and balance to this. It cannot be just a unilateral, they are the only ones that make the decision, and a report to, in some way, shape, or form. Jamal and I were actually talking about this the other day. A report in some way, shape, or form, whether just say how long somebody's been medically down. I don't need to know what's going on. So let's say Aaron Katz has been medically disqualified for 9 to 10 months. At least we would know, man, does anyone know Aaron's been medically disqualified for that long? So we have some level of accountability, some level of oversight, and we can start tackling those problems and issues. We have an ARVP that talks to a GM. We have an RVP who talks to a DO, and not a single person has a conduit over to the regional flight surgeon. We need to start figuring out who that conduit is. And that's something Jamal and I are absolutely going to explore as soon as we're in office. And I don't know what all the solutions are, but it has to start with a conversation with, the regional flight surgeon and the national flight surgeon.
Thanks, Chrissy. Good to hear your voice. Okay, we're going to go back to the chat, and we have the chair of our National Benefits Committee asking, does Team NDJH have a plan to better support the numerous NACA committees? Jen Rivera.
Hey, Jen, how you doing? I think one of the things is being on several committees is letting the committees speak for themselves. You solicit for people to be on committees. You select them based on their expertise. The next thing to do is get out of their way and then provide support. Again, I keep bringing Nick up, one, because his name is front and center on my on my squares. Nick Luch. I'm the national training rep. Nick's one of the 4 members of the union that are on our 3120.4 rewrite team. I don't get in their way very often. I do my best to provide support to them. I don't go to their meetings. I don't have an RVP sitting in their meeting to be a liaison to me, to come back and tell me what they're doing. I trust them, and then I support them. That needs to happen for all of our committees. Our committee chairs are bright people. They need to be given opportunity to speak directly to the National Executive Board. They need to have opportunities to address our membership. Our 114s and committee chairs get disparaged so much because so many people don't know what they do. Allow them to be the face of their committee. Allow them to speak on behalf of this union and get out of the way. And when they reach obstacles, then you provide support and get back out of the way. Because I know that the committees I'm on are producing despite not having that level of support right now. And I know we produced at a higher level before. And oh, by the way, also don't always try to steal their thunder and make it yours. When ATX committee or the National Training Committee develops ATX, or it comes out from the Reloaded Committee, don't try to make it yours. Give people credit for their work, and they'll continue to work hard for you. So I hope that answers, and I don't know if Nick has anything to add to that.
The only thing I'll say is the action item Jamal spoke of. We should have committed, engagements from the National Executive Board with our committee chairs. So all the way back to the first question from Bob, either via Zoom or in person, where these 5 committees are going to come. We have expectations of talking about what their current goals are, what their 3-year goal is, what's the outlook for the committee, what are they working on, and what support do they need. Answer those questions, and then you have your time with us. That should happen more than one committee meeting. That needs to happen with our entire National Executive Board, so we can then engage through that course of the meeting of, okay, we've heard from these committees. Now, what do we want to do with this information, and what action items are we going to take from that? So, just as Jamal said, getting out of the way of the experts, letting them do the work, but also putting in the expectations and the communication, and not just being a once a year meeting.
I do have a question though. I don't know if Jen is willing to, but we often ask this. Jen, if you're willing to, you don't have to come on camera, but tell us what you think needs to happen so we can learn. If we just always use our own 2 brains to come up with all of the solutions, we're going to have blind spots. So if you have it, if you feel like typing it, if you want us to send us an email, that's fine. But we've gotten this question a few times. We want feedback from those who are on committees to see what's missing. Because you said better, which means it needs to improve. At least that's how I read that.
I will unmute for a second. I have lots of ideas, so I can email them.
Okay. Thank
Please
you very
do.
much.
Thanks for the question, Jen. Thanks for everything you and the Benefits Committee do for the union. Okay, we have a hand raised, but it just says iPhone. So I'll click on the iPhone, ask to unmute, and we'll find out who our mystery questionnaire is.
It's Bob again. It's me.
Hi, Bob.
I'm the problem. It's me. As Taylor Swift would say. I one comment. I guess thanks for Rachel doing an amazing job at IndyFac Rep for that question. But there are, I guess, highlight success stories. Like I've been on SSRIs now for a decade, working traffic since COVID. I mean, there are people in the mental health space that have gotten their medicals back, and we're doing just fine. I mean, Rachel might disagree about my working skills as airplanes, but we're out there too. People that have kind of come on the other side and doing great. So something to think about for everybody for the e-board, or not e-board, but executive board, is to highlight those success stories. Because I think some people are afraid that they're never going to get their medical, but there are guys like me and gals that have and doing fine. So, and I guess my question, so like full disclosure, I'm kind of a never extender. I don't see how, sorry for the music, I'm working at a festival. I don't see in my mind how we can extend the contract again. And I guess, do you guys foresee a path where you guys would say, hey, we can't extend, we just have to take the fight to whatever administration that wants to fight us? I just see like a cyclical path of of Republicans writing EOs, and if we just keep saying, well, we'll extend, doesn't that give them more power to keep writing EOs and keep, doing it to us over and over? And do you see a path where you would get to, no, we can't extend, we got to take the fight to them, and it may hurt in the short term, but it may help in the long term? Is I guess the question, because I don't see how we survive as a union personally extending again. Talking to members that I work with, they're just like, we have to get a new contract. We just can't keep doing this. So I guess that's my biggest fear as we extend, is to be honest with you.
Jamal, you want to start out? Or you want me to start on this one?
I'll start it. I think the first thing that has to happen, Bob, is education. Educations to the members of what's at stake in all situations. At stake is if executive orders are in place and we open a CBA under an administration that puts the executive orders that were in place before, we immediately lose 77 contract articles. Those contract articles include things like our ADSAT protection, our schedules, our annual leave, our ability to leave a facility, Article 33, our position description, rotation through positions, things that I think a lot of times our members think that the agency is benevolent and they give us things. We have fought tooth and nail to get every single thing that we have. So all of those permissive subjects of bargaining would go away. Why do I mention something like ADSAT protection? Well, one of the executive orders is that they could fire you for performance. Fire you for performance, fire me for performance of having 2.5 miles instead of 3, and keep Nick on the next day when he has 2 instead of 3, because it also said they don't have to use like type discipline. So we need to encourage our members, or give our members all of the information, and then allow them to make decisions based on that. But also we need to check the temperature of any entity that exists. So if we are in 2024 elected this year, and let's say Donald Trump wins the presidency, let's just put it all out there, Donald Trump wins the presidency, we can slide the MOUs that we talked about at the beginning of this call across the table on pay, and you will get to see the temperature for that for that administration and how they perceive whether or not we need to have a pay increase. But to do that and also risk everything that we've gained with nothing to gain from it doesn't make a lot of sense. Do we want to extend the CBA? Absolutely not. Do we want to protect this union and its members? Not only do we want that, we have to do that. And we have to do that by educating them. So, and the last I'll say before I pass it to Nick, what was written was, absent the ability to delay the decision, that we extend with the opportunity to open in 2026 with mutual consent. Many have said, well, I don't trust this administration, the Biden administration, to do that in 2026. However, they do somehow think that they can overcome an anti-labor administration that's been very clear that they are anti-federal government employee. This is not a joke. This is not a scare tactic. This is not something we wish it wasn't a thing so we could get it completely out of the way, but we owe you the truth. So I'll turn it over to Nick, and then Bob, I want to hear from you again to tell us, are you sure that there is nothing that would ever say perhaps protecting ourselves is the right thing to do under these circumstances? But over you.
I guess I'll give you the 30,000-foot view of what I have, right? So yes, here's where I'm looking at, and I talk to coworkers, right? Here's the deal. So let's say the Trump administration's played out, they come in, they do the executive orders, and they just destroy our contract, right? Well, the majority of our workforce is less than 10 years, a lot of 5 years. They're going to lose a lot of people, right? People are going to leave. They're going to walk out the door. We're already critically staffed. I guess I sometimes I worry, and to be frank, that we're not using the power that we have. Like we all know, like the COVID thing, it took a couple facilities to end that whole thing, or the government shutdown. I mean, it took 2 facilities to end the government shutdown, right? And I'm not professing that we do any sort of illegal thing or whatever. I'm not even professing like slowdowns, nothing like that. I'm just saying we have a lot of power. Our profession drives the economy, and it just seems to me like if we were to take on an administrator, say, okay, cool, like do all this stuff to us, but you're going to lose a quarter or half of your work. Like a lot of these young guys and gals are just going to leave. The pay hasn't kept up. You know, you're telling them you got to work 6 days a week with Tuesday off, and now you're going to take away their rights. They're just going to walk. And I guess my biggest fear is we get into a cyclical thing of like we can't ever bargain with a Republican. And if like if we don't ever fight, then how they just kind of know that, oh, if we have Republicans, we just start an EO and the union will just have to kind of say, nope, we got to extend. And I consider myself fairly educated, and what you're saying is completely right, Jamal. I don't disagree with you that like, yes, they would destroy our contract, no doubt about it. But like my big worry too is like a lot of our members are worried that like we're never going to get another one. Like I have 9 years left, and so we're kind of worried. Like we all the news is about the future, like about future hires, mass hiring, all the CWRG numbers, but like the current controllers are kind of being left behind. Like, we're like, okay, like, but when's it going to be our turn? Like, when is it going to be us? And I guess that's my biggest fear is if we do extend, which I get your logic is sound, Jamal. I don't want you to think I'm disagreeing with you because I know it's sound. But at the end of the day, I worry, to be frank, that a lot of members are going to either leave the union and or leave the agency because they're just like, why stay if nothing's going to get better?
Jamal, you mind if I start first and then?
You got it, brother. Thanks, Bob.
No, Bob, I love the perspective because that's the conversations that we have to have. So let's look at it through a different lens, Bob, because I completely agree with you about using the power of this union, the power of our voice in the collective. You know what that doesn't have to be in? When there's a gun to our head by an anti-federal employer and say, hey, you know what? Sorry. That was you, Bob. I was like, man, there's somebody else talking right now.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're
feel free to mute me. I'm sorry. There's music playing in the background.
No, you're great, my brother. So why would we walk into and just think about using our power again into a slaughter when we have the ability to say, let's use that power that you're talking about to remove the executive orders, pivot how we negotiate, and start going through robust MOU negotiations without having to have a full term negotiation in order to not lose all of those rights in the interim. We could, because there's a clock on to 2026 if you don't if those executive orders go into place. It's a ticking time bomb. Like you said, it could burn all down and those executive orders could go into place, but we would be fighting. I don't want a single person to leave this call not saying that Jamal and I aren't ready for a fight. 1000% believe we just have to be smart at how we fight it. To go in and say, this is our only avenue and path. We never teach that in rep training. And like you said, Bob, I know you're very educated and you've been around this union for quite some time. When have we ever said we're going to take this singular approach and that's it? We win or we lose it, or it all goes away from us. We have to engage in LR, and that would be through the MOUs or a term negotiation. We have to engage legislatively because, like you said, this could continue and perpetuate on and on. But you will find out from the exact same person who put in the executive orders when you go to negotiate via MOU that they're going to say, yeah, we're going to end up taking 77 contract articles from you before you start, but we want to pay you a lot of money. Those things don't usually go hand in hand. We have to be real with the membership and say, we're going to go out, as Jamal said, and immediately engage in talking about pay if there are to be executive orders in place. And we'll know when we get to 2026 what our maneuver is. But then we could keep fighting in 2026, 2027, 2028 until we're in a prime spot and keep pushing pay proposals and keep doing those things without losing all of our collective or all of our wins that we've built up over the past 30 years that you're mentioning. You don't have to let it burn down in order just to build back. You have to continue fighting and letting the battlefield develop for us to know what the proper strategy is to go. And I don't think the proper strategy is, well, damn, those of us who are left here, like it was a raging fire behind us. And well, now that it's extinguished, I guess we'll try to recover.
Yeah, and
Jamal.
I certainly don't want to depend on our younger members walking out and to somehow get the rest of us a pay raise. I am like you, Bob, at a level 11 facility. Most people tell me I'm going to lose an election, so I'm likely to go back to being air traffic controller soon. The only thing I've ever done as an adult is be an air traffic controller. My pay is tied to being an air traffic controller. It always has been, and it always will be. I want to see our pay increase. There's no doubt about it. It's unfortunate that people have campaigned and tried to provide this narrative that Nick and I don't want to see those things. And it's likely because they have very little else to offer. Rich Santa is on record as saying if Donald Trump wins and executive orders are in place, he will not negotiate a contract under that. Now, that moves. He said that in March of 23. He just recently said it again in Salt Lake City at the Northwest Mountain Regional meeting. And Mick Devine or any executive vice president, myself, can be as loud as I want. That decision lies with the president of the union. And that decision is weighty, and that decision is one that would affect all of our families. You're talking about an anti-federal government entity that if you show up 5 minutes late to work could say you're fired. Bob, I love our job. I love this career field, and I want to see the pay increase. I don't want to see people, we talk about anxiety. I don't want to see our controllers working under that, guys. And we can and absolutely will. Our pay, the biggest pay changes that we've had in the history of this union have come via legislation. And then again, as an act of President Barack Obama forcing us back to the table after the Red Book. And that actually wasn't a pay increase, that was making us whole again. So this notion that somehow the only way to increase pay is during CBA negotiations comes from people who don't actually know how to move the pay. But if you elect them because they yell that they're going to do that, then you might find out that they're either unwilling or incapable and also have not been honest with you the whole time. And Bob, you're free to retort, brother, because we like conversing.
Oh, no. Yeah. And here's the thing, like everything you say, like I totally agree with, right? I'm just giving my perspective from like other members, right? And I think to be frank, I'll be frank. Like, so the first time with the extension, I think members were kind of sold on it and they understood. I just, to be honest, don't think it's going to be a real hard sell to do it again. Because it was kind of like, the first time it was like, hey guys, we just need to get this person elected and everything will be great. Well, everything was not great. Like, you know what I mean? My brother works for the railroads. Biden screwed them, right? Like, it hasn't been at the labor-friendly union our administration that we were promised. And I worry that, like, if we extend again, it's going to be a real hard sell for people to buy in to say, okay, we'll do it again. We'll extend again, hoping next time we'll get lucky and it'll be a favorable Democrat. That's my biggest fear, to be honest, right?
So the only thing I would ask as a retort to that real quick, Bob, is in contract negotiations, I think people believe everything to be linear or you go up. That pay, if we go to a contract negotiation, which pay would be a mandatory subject of bargaining, that we get to say, hey, give us a 40% raise. Again, as Nick said, in this case, it would be a administration that has stripped us of our rights. And we say, hey, give us a 20, 30, 40% raise. And they say, well, it's contract negotiations, we have to. It's not how it works. And with Barack Obama in office, you know what they offered us in the last contract negotiations? To reduce our pay. To take out the regardless of position and band exemption that allows us to get up to the cap, that allows us to move through the bands. They took that away. They offered to take that away. They offered to combine our 4s and 5s, our 6s and 7s, our 8s and 9s. They also offered pay by area. They want to be able to go into ND Center and say, this area is a level 8, this area is a level 12. These are the type things that they want to do. So while we would fight vehemently against those things, then what happens if you reach impasse? You have to know the impasse process. How does that play out? Who ultimately makes the decision? So the members have to be educated. Again, we would love to say we're out giving out candy and we have everything you possibly want, but instead we're taking the high road. We're being honest with the members, and we hope that resonates because we know we're doing the right thing for the right reason. And again, we do not want to extend the contract. That was a trick deployed so that you would think that that's who we are. I love negotiating contracts. I'll just be honest with you about it. It was fun.
And that's, I'll guess in case it needs to be emphasized one more time, we have zero desire to extend this contract. That's why we put the caveat in there. You still have to have the ability to negotiate in 2026. We will not go out and just say extend it into perpetuity, and we're not gonna look back. We'll hope for in the future. That's only by two people, Mick and Rich, who think that's the only way you move the ball forward, which is completely false. We would be able to move the ball forward no matter what, because we'll immediately engage in these discussions. We're not going to miss the opportunity like which was missed in 2022, in 2023, because the last NEB, when they did the extension, did not engage or put in a caveat to ensure that they get to negotiate again. So that will be, and we are firmly committed to ensuring that no matter what our circumstances is, that we will be looking for any and every way to move our pay forward.
Yeah, and I hope you guys know I wasn't trying to like get into like any rumors, whatever. I'm just giving you my personal. I haven't gotten to talk to you, so like just my frank observation. I didn't want to. I hope you weren't thinking I was trying to put words into your mouth. I just appreciate the frank discussion. So
No,
I wasn't trying to get into that. The rumor mills, trying to stay out of it.
Didn't take it that way. Took it as a member asking a question that had a concern that is also voicing the concerns of those in your area. That's what I mean. When you talk about fractures, it should be a coherent message coming from all of the NEB saying the same exact thing, telling the truth about the threat that exists and the truth about the possibilities of lanes that we might have to go down. Look, these positions aren't forever positions. You might get unelected for making an all important decision that's not popular. That's something you have to be willing to do. That's something you have to be willing to do as an area rep, a FAC rep, a VP, a EVP, a RVP, and a president. You got to be willing to do the right thing for the right reasons. And if then people look and say, well, I don't want you there, then you got to live with that as well. But it's unfortunate that people are campaigning misleading our membership because you might have that F around and find out moment.
Bob, you help us hit the gear that these town halls should have, because you brought truth to the table. You brought the ideas and opinions. That's what this is for, man. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and no need to apologize for stuff like that, Bob. That's why we're here. And we've crossed the 90-minute mark and we're still going. It's great. It's what we do. So we have another question from the chat, and it's Albert Navarro from Port Columbus. I understand continuity is important, but has there been discussion having time limits to permanent Article 114 positions? Perhaps reevaluating this to maximum of X amount of years to allow and encourage members to get intricately involved rather than one person occupying a position for X amount of years. The majority of members do not understand the benefits of these positions bring us, but at the same time complain about the permanent aspect, which I agree should be a topic to look into.
I will say that I absolutely understand where you're coming from, Alex. And there's two different aspects of this. One is ensuring that we have the expertise that's out there. Jamal, I'm sure will speak to that from the position of an Article 114, but I completely agree. And, we'll see how Jamal, views this. But one of the things we have to do as leaders is set expectations. And those expectations are these positions aren't a forever appointment or for life. When actually the one time that I've seen by our Constitution that we review them, I believe it's every 2 years, and it was put in front of us. It was all the safety and tech recommends everybody stay in their position. All those in favor, say aye. Like, whoa, like we're not going to break down and take a look at who's doing what and what are they working on or anything like that. I'll tell you right now, when Jamal and I are in that position, it won't be a check in the box exercise. We'll look and see what's going on. We'll look and see what where it needs to be updated or refreshed, because there are many positions out there that we get, I would say, siloed on or focused on, where it does become a, hey, we need a new person in here. And that comes from engaging and having the conversations, setting the expectations from the beginning. But in a world where if you can retain the experience of a national training representative like Daniels-Haltom, he's built that position into something that we haven't seen before. Why would we then say, okay, somebody else start over? So I think there's certain positions that it makes sense for, and others that it don't, that it does not. But I can promise you, we'll be able to stand in front of you, saying, "Here's a list of our Article 114s. Here's what they're working on. Here's what they're doing, and here's our plan with each and every one of them." And it won't be just we'll wait until they all tap out or quit.
Thank you for the question. I may have called you Alex Navarro inadvertently, as our brother from the Northwest Mountain Region, but it was Albert Navarro
Oh, I
from,
thought you said it was Alex who asked that
and I
question. My
may
bad.
have. So I wanted to clean that up just out of respect for Albert there. So thanks for the question, Albert. Okay, so at the moment, I'm not seeing any hands raised or questions in the chat. I'll kind of put a last call out there, give everybody a chance to chime in. And while you're doing that, you may have seen a couple times here in the chat that we've posted a jot form to help get the vote out. Ballots go out in 11 short days, and it's going to take everyone to get everyone else in this union to vote, right? I started the town hall by explaining the importance of this, and it's really, really important that people use this opportunity use their voice, right? This is when your voice speaks the loudest in an election. So if you would like to be part of helping encourage others to vote, please consider clicking on the link there, and someone from the campaign will contact you. I also would like to say, you may have seen in the chat that we posted our website and our social medias. Obviously, many people flock to social media. Our website is where you can find a lot of information about Nick and Jamal's thoughts and the perspectives of candidates. Don't just go there to make yourself more informed, but if you hear conversations in your facility, send others to the website so that they can educate themselves, because they're going to get a ballot as well. The social media is not just about likes and follows and reposts. It's about engaging. It's about staying involved, and being the most informed you possibly can when your ballot shows up and you go to mail it in. I did a little tap dancing there and a public service announcement on that. I did not see any additional hands go up or questions. So this is the point. Well, I will turn it over to Nick and Jamal to close us out.
Brother Jamal, go ahead, my man. And I do want to apologize quickly. I didn't hear the name earlier. And like I said, I don't know who said it. But man, Albert, I'm so glad that you're here. And again, thanks for all the hospitality when it came out to Columbus, man. Y'all really did an amazing job getting us up to speed on what's going on out there and what y'all are facing.
Well, in closing, thank you all for attending. The sincerity that I hope we convey is real. I have been a union rep for a very long time. It means the world to me to even be a candidate for a position that's important as this, and for you all to join and listen. I hope what we said resonated, and I hope you spread our message. And if not, if you so choose to go otherwise, our union's going to find a way. We always do. But I have full faith in myself and Nick. And when it says Team NDJH, I want to be clear, that's not just us two. It's a giant group of people that support and believe in this union and have a real desire to see us return and then exceed the heights that we've been at in the past. We are a union that our members should be proud to be part of. I want to restore that. I want our members to not even think about walking out. I want our members to know that this union has their back and they're going to get to a place that they could be proud to be part of our union. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nick. I'll just end by saying thank you all for attending one more time.
Couldn't agree more. And to have you all here wanting to know more about your union, about the vision, the direction, is ultimately what this is about, and what inspires Jamal and I. Is you took your time to ensure that these conversations were had, that your questions were asked, answered, and that's what we should be. We should be a union that has a purpose, has a direction, and you understand that purpose and what your purpose is inside it. And we'll say it again and again, because right now we're on a direction and a path where this union's about, what'd you get me today? because we're going out and we have Rich going out and promising people special MOUs or special favors for different individuals, depending on or who yelled the loudest, right? Who broke through the ceiling finally. We have facilities out there that are suffering. We have, it doesn't matter if it's level 4 or level 12, it takes engaged leaders that are going to go out and want to be with the membership, want to hear from them, and want to move us forward. That's what it takes. It can't be, well, this, person voted for me, so therefore I'll help them. If you in any way think that that's Rich and Mick, which will tell you it is, then you know that we're going in the wrong direction. Jamal and I will not be about that, because one of us will be in every one of your facilities. We'll have the firsthand conversations. We'll put a path and a plan together that we know that you will ultimately agree or disagree. Know that a union is doing union work, and that is something that each of us can be proud of. So I look forward to standing with all of you. And now it's your work. Now it's your time. Your time is cast a ballot. Because if you let this moment go by, or if you let any person in your facility not cast one, then we're going to collectively show the agency that we are divided. We are weak. When we decide whether somebody wins by 1 vote or 2,000 votes, you can go in and show them we're paying attention, agency. We're here and we're going to use our voice. And that's that power and that strength that a union's talking about. So use your power, use your strength, and let's move us forward and not stay status quo and take us in an entirely new direction, a new time, and a new era. I know Jamal and I will be proud to lead the way. So with that, y'all have an amazing night. Thank you for the time.
Thanks for being so gracious, folks.